Alright, so these are going to be my impressions with spoilers of Paw Patrol, the Dino Movie. I've seen it twice now, and in this video I'm going to talk from beginning to end, each scene that happens, and give my opinions on it, my thoughts, and basically break it all down and give my opinions. Now, I want to be very clear, this is going to be a video full of spoilers. I don't want anybody to be inadvertently spoiled by anything I mention, or anything I talk about. I won't use any visuals that will be spoiling. I know there's illegal cam rips out there, but I'm obviously not going to use anything but official videos like this GIF of Marshall ore farming behind me right now. So overall, yeah, consider this your spoiler warning. I don't think I could be much clearer. If you want to stay spoiler free, obviously do not watch this video. Okay, so the movie starts with Snoop Dogg and his family out on their little boat. He's fishing, not very well, and his wife, played by Paris Hilton, who's named Nancy, has brought along fish to cook in the little barbecue you can just see at the top here. That character, Nancy, also has an ugly cat called Mr. Fluffy Butt, and it knocks over the barbecue when trying to take a fish and starts a fire. So, they decide they need to call for help. The Paw Patrol are out on the aircraft carrier for no established reason. They just happen to be sailing around playing ball. So this establishes Marshall as clumsy. As expected, we immediately start having everybody hammering on clumsiness and the fact that Marshall is the clumsy pup, even though the movies didn't really do a great job of establishing it. They actually very much lean on the show lore that they haven't used. Marshall falls into like a pipe, a funnel on the boat, and says, hey, everyone knows I'm the clumsy one. I come out, I go, I'm okay, that's my thing. So, even though they haven't established that, they're very much drawing on what's been established by the show to make sure everybody knows that he's the clumsy pup. So during this, obviously they get the call that there's an emergency going on. Actually, Rocky has a very cute moment where he says this is his first touchdown he's scored, and he's a little bit disappointed they have to stop, but, duty calls. So, the ship is on fire, and, the Paw Patrol show up. Zuma goes and gets the family onto that little dinghy you could see there. He doesn't actually do much else in the movie, so if you're a Zuma fan, enjoy those few moments. He gets some zingers, he gets some good one-liners, better than Rubble, I'd say, but yeah, he doesn't actually actively get to do much except for this little rescue. And of course, Marshall gets the bigger part of it. They are putting out the fire from these big, like water cannons you see that come out from the aircraft carrier, and then they remember the cat is still on board, so Marshall goes to save the cat. And he's very much telling himself he has to not mess up. Once again, the central moral quandary has to be hammered at all times so that everybody's, fully aware what the emotional growth arc is. So he's telling himself he has to do this right. He has to not mess up. And he actually shows off some axe attachments from his backpack. He dual wields 2 axes to get through some locked doors, which is pretty cool. Unexpectedly cool, maybe. It looks a little bit violent, but yeah, Marshall in the movies has 2 hefty axes that he can just bring out and strike a pose with. Pretty cool. I like that part. He finds the cat, and yeah, you see this moment behind me. He gets trapped inside the room, has to go out through the porthole, and jumps in the water. And I kind of wish Zuma at least, made a move to rescue him. They do the same fake out as at the end of movie 2, where they're like, oh, I don't see him, they're not surfacing. And then he comes up with the cat just fine. So I feel like Zoomer at least should have, prepared to dive in. Anyway, it's Marshall's moment, and the cat is safe. He has a slightly cheeky line about the cat's butt will fluff right back up again once he drives off, and the rescue is considered successful. So we move right on to them going into a storm. It basically cuts straight there after the mission finishes. Ryder says, "Oh, it looks like we're heading for some weather," and then we cut to this what we've seen in the trailers of the aircraft carrier going over high waves, the pups sliding about, Rocky not enjoying himself. There's no real reference to him being afraid of water or anything. He just comes across as seasick and has his little life vest on while everybody else is kind of enjoying it. But suddenly the volcano, which I never noticed watching this clip before, but it's looming out of the fog here. This is actually the island's, well, we assume it's the volcano. It's some very large geographical, just a geological feature, which we can assume is the volcano. Anyway, Ryder only sees it at the very last moment, and there isn't an island meant to be here on the map, so they crash. And they brace for impact, and then that doesn't help very much. Pups go flying, and I think that the way Rocky lands on Ryder's head ends up being pretty funny. So, yeah, they look out of the window, and immediately it becomes morning. It went from night and fog to immediately clearing up and the sun breaking over it, so they decide they have to explore, presumably with zero sleep, but, it doesn't really matter, and they just go straight for it, and yes, they gear up in the new uniforms, and there's no reason for any dino-like features, so, as I've said previously, we just have to headcanon that the lizard prints are because of jungle lizards, and the clear dino spines on Zuma's helmet are actually supposed to be like aquatic lizard spines. There's no solid explanation, so you can either let that bother you as a kind of plot hole or be charitable and say, okay, so this happens to be the jungle exploration gear that Ryder came up with at random in advance, and they gear up. Marshall gets a rope, which will come up later. They go out to explore the island. We've seen them kind of scaling the cliff and looking out at this vista. It's all very beautiful. And then that's when Marshall goes on this little ledge and says, "I've got the best view," and falls down. And everyone goes, "Marshall," as if that's really clumsy. I kind of think that's a little uncharitable. I mean, just because he chose to sit there doesn't really mean he's being more clumsy than average, but that's kind of how they play it. Now, obviously, he lands on the Spinosaurus's snout. The Spinosaurus does not get called Janus, by the way. It's just a Spinosaurus. That's purely something they've put into the TV episodes. So yeah, Janus is something I really like, but it's not something that's in this movie. Obviously, he's very scared of Janus. Oh, I'm sorry. I just explained it's not Janus. He's very scared of the Spinosaurus, and they all start running. He does go back up, but it just easily chases them. It doesn't matter that they're on higher ground, as I was saying, might be something that would mean extra scenes had to be here. No, it just goes straight into this chase sequence of elements of which we've seen many times before, and Rex and Timmy come to the rescue by facing down the Spinosaurus and chasing it away. Now, in this scene, Timmy very nearly kills Marshall. Marshall has to roll out of the way or he's going to get trodden on, and even though, well, other events later might make it seem like he can happily tank that, it would be a pretty terrible movie if Timmy and Rex just appear and stomp on Marshall, and that's the end. But you know, we have to kind of make allowances for an action movie and say, oh yeah, Rex just trusted that Marshall would get out of the way, and he does. But yeah, the Spinosaurus gets chased away, and Rex comes down to introduce himself. He says, you know, I'm so pleased to see pups. He hasn't seen them for a long time. Um, in the Japanese version, he's just like, "Oh, hey guys," and they're like, "Hey Rex," because they decided they're not doing that whole uh, resetting the continuity thing, which is pretty interesting. But that's for a different video. Uh, in the original, he says yeah, he doesn't have a flashback, and he doesn't have any kind of complicated backstory. There is, as expected, no mention of how he lost the use of his back legs. I prefer to think of it as congenital, and that he was in the wheelchair when he arrived on the island. But he just says, you know, there was a shipwreck. That's the backstory you get for him. He just uh, got shipwrecked. Did he say shipwrecked or did he say fell overboard? He says shipwrecked. Of course, Marshall says Timmy is pretty scary, and Rex says no, he's not. He's very cute and acts like a dog. He doesn't say that. That's just what happens, and he decides to show them around. So he does a lot of kind of really impressive actions, going down routes and things. And there's a very cute moment where Marshall goes, "Oh, he's so cool," very sweet. And of course, he shows them to the treehouse, takes them up in the elevator, up to the top. And Pinar Toprak's score is really, really nice here. It's really the only place that it stands out a significant amount. But yeah, overall, it's a very nice score beginning to end. Nothing stands out in a bad way at all. So yeah, I think we've heard the best moment of it revealed in promo materials, though. They get to the top, and actually, the iCloud line doesn't make it into the movie. That was just a trailer-only moment. In fact, quite a lot of lines change from promos to final cut. So expect a few differences, like Alistair later says Marshall's his nephew's favorite, whereas in the promo materials we've had in the last couple of days, he says he's my favorite. So there are differences like that. But yeah, the iCloud line isn't there at all. Then he says if you really want to see the island, you have to see it like this. You've seen this scene as promos, no doubt, and it's definitely one of the most spectacular and cinematic moments. And as I've said before, it's a great way to kind of have exposition. So far, there's probably zero surprises to anybody who's been following along. And this does play out exactly as it is in the video we recently saw where Bottle Up is playing. Bottle Up does indeed play over the scene in exactly this way. And this moment where I was thinking, hey, this isn't in that clip. Yeah, actually, writer's just been kind of badly cut out. You can, when you see it in motion, you can see how it doesn't fit into this particular shot. He doesn't come down close to the ground or get separated from the others. He's just he just turns with this expression, and then it kind of weirdly cuts to them all flying left to right in formation with him not in the lead. So I think something did kind of get cut, but it's not something that was cut for promos. It's something that's a little bit of a weird cut in the final movie. Anyway, they land, and Marshall, we see his clumsiness again, probably in the best example of him actually being clumsy, as he doesn't land smoothly like everyone else does. He kind of goes, whoa, 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 and falls down as he lands. So a good example of the clumsiness. And then they kind of look at the vista and say, we have to share this with the world. And then that kind of becomes an it moves very quickly from there. Very little of the practicalities or discussions or anything like that get covered. So we jump straight to Humdinger getting let out of adventure city jail. We we don't know how long his sentence was, but it seemingly wasn't very long at all. He says he's turned over a new leaf, and the guard who's kind of seeing off, calling out to him, is like, "Oh, I'll believe that when I see it." Um, and he goes to this diner, and it's maybe going to be a little galling to Liberty fans and anyone else hoping to see maybe the junior patrollers. They're not in it at all. They don't show up whatsoever, not even a reference to them. Nobody mentions them. But Hank and Janet get to be in this scene. They're sitting in the diner in the background. It's a silent cameo, but they get thought of, but Liberty doesn't. It's a little bit galling, I'd say. And also, maybe subtle touch, a police officer, maybe I think the prison guard from the last movie, just using that asset again, but a police officer walks past the window. That might be a little bit of him there, which I think is quite a nice touch, kind of to show there's still law enforcement, when the Paw Patrol have left the city. Just very subtly revealing that. Anyway, there's Lillian Leeds' report is on the television, and Humdinger sees the diamonds, gets the idea to go, and says he's going to be rich, and the kiddies all cackle. The news report itself is kind of a pretty extended collage that moves things on very, very fast. Like, there's the scene with Eugenia getting licked and arriving, and Theo rising there, but it all moves very, very, very fast. And we don't hear how long it takes for them to get there. We don't hear, a comprehensive list of who is arriving. Obviously, nobody asks to bring the Paw Patrol's mighty crystals, which would have made the rest of the movie a dawdle. It just doesn't get mentioned. Nobody knows why they don't have their crystals, with whether they're left behind, whether Liberty's using them, whether superpowers are just kind of going to be ignored from now on. None of it gets even mentioned, so just don't expect any kind of an explanation. But yeah, we get little scenes of the pups helping out. This doctor character who doesn't have a name is doing a throat check with a spatula on the Spinosaurus, and it roars. That's really the extent of the scene. The Zuma scene is there, a scene of Rubble getting his snacks taken from him, and a scene with Sky helping a scientist look down a microscope. I'm not sure what expertise she's offering, but it happens. And yeah, quite a cute scene of Chase and Marshall measuring a Brachiosaurus with a tape measure together, like in tandem. One does one half, and then Chase kind of holds both tape measures while Marshall goes and finishes the other half. It's cute. So that done, we get not this particular scene, the scene we haven't got any footage of, where Humdinger and his two henchmen here are making their way to the island. It's on a boat that's leaking oil, which seems like it's going to be an environmental message, but I guess it's just a little bit of symbolism for those few seconds. And to my surprise, I really liked Harper. Harper Cutlass, the jungle exploration expert who's meant to be keeping them safe, is incompetent in an actually very funny way. I ended up thinking she was much more entertaining than I was expecting her to be from, her appearance and these kind of the previews we had. I ended up liking her as a bit of comic relief quite a lot. I mean, she doesn't do much. None of the humans do much. But she left an impression in a positive way that I wasn't expecting. And Alistair is also an entertaining character, but in the exact way we could tell he would be from the promos. So they are actually going up. They're arriving on the boat. That's the scene we get with them. And then part of the collage was washing dinos, and we end up with Marshall trying to wash a dirty dino as well, but there's no water left. And Rex says the water wheel must have stuck. There's another Rex and Marshall mini scene. and sends Marshall off to fix it. As you can see, there was a stick blocking it, and he pulls that away, and then he throws it away, and it becomes a game of fetch with Rhubarb. Very cute, but something we've seen already, and yeah, there's really not much else to it. The reason Rhubarb ends up in the water is not Marshall's fault. It's not actually another example of clumsiness, really, which is good. Marshall throws the stick for Rhubarb to catch, and Rhubarb tries to catch it, but it bounces off his snout a couple of times and ends up in the water. And then he goes in after it and ends up being washed away by the current. There's quite a nice line where Marshall says he was the original fetch master. So I think that's kind of cute and fun to imagine. So yeah, they go over the waterfall. There are no real consequences to this. You know, they're going towards the edge, and Marshall's going, "Oh, I hope it's a little one. I hope it's a little one. And it's a huge one." And they plunge and swim back up, and there's a little bit of tension, but very little, because they reappear together, and then yeah, Rhubarb finds the stick. So yeah, it's mostly just adorable. There's a little bit of tension there, obviously, with going down rapids and falling down a waterfall, not knowing how big it's going to be, but it's more on the comedic light side, and then he can introduce Rhubarb to everybody. Rhubarb does get named, at least in the English version. The Japanese is slightly different, by just blurting out that he's Rhubarb. Marshall's saying, "Oh, he's this color, and he's got little bits of green and this," and Rubble just goes, "Rhubarb," and Marshall actually looks like he's not keen on that name. Maybe something like Watermelon would have been better, but Rhubarb looks so happy about it that they decide that is his name. Sky says how cute he is. Everyone kind of agrees, and he does his little unimpressive roar. So yeah, it's a very cute little moment, and even though Rhubarb disappears for much of the movie, you do get the sense that these two care for each other, and it's very sweet. So I'm happy to see more of Rhubarb. Humdinger and crew have arrived on the island by this point, and they make their way up to where the diamonds are. They just drive there without much incident. There are, little moments of Humdinger getting scared of dinos later on, but no incidents up until here, where they come across a Brachiosaurus blocking this road. It's eating a tree further up, and Humdinger wants it to get out of the way, obviously, so Harper attempts to move it by doing a weird dinosaur call. Not her funniest moment, but it is what it is, and they have a bit of banter, which is funnier. But then Humdinger loses patience and just rams it. He drives his little golf cart into its feet a couple of times. Well, kind of him and the kitties. The kitties are pretty evil in this movie, and they kind of control the gas and backing up and going back into drive, and Humdinger is steering, so, it's all of them together. But ultimately they push the Brachiosaurus off balance, and it falls down into the gorge, needing rescuing. Harper looks concerned, but doesn't really do anything about it. And so a little later, it's Heidi who finds the Brachiosaurus and calls it in. We don't know how she finds it. We just see it from her in the call in this scene. So before she calls, they are... Oh, look. Yeah, this is me. They're teaching Rhubarb to roar, and they don't do it very successfully. Chase's line here is different from what we heard in the promos. He's actually saying, take a deep breath or something. Well, that's Rubble's line. Anyway, he's giving some of the instructions. And yeah, all of the pups kind of do a roar, which is very cute. But Rhubarb, of course, is still not able to do it very well. Then, yeah, we get the scene of the Brachiosaur in the gorge. There's the very nice moment of these two, Rocky and Chase, working together to get harnesses and a net around it, and then it's up to Marshall to pull it up. And this book version was very simplified. It's actually not really Marshall's fault. So what happens is it would have actually gone without a hitch, but the cable picks up a dead tree branch, pulls it into the winch mechanism, and it gets stuck. And Marshall, while climbing out to check on the mechanism, his rope that is newly part of his uniform gets caught on the lever that controls the kind of stabilizing side arms. They come back, and then that's why the whole thing ends up falling in, narrowly missing Rocky. In the Japanese, Rocky makes a very cute noise when the truck nearly hits him. But yeah. So arguably it was Marshall being clumsy and messing up, and certainly he blames himself for it. But you could also look at it as, come on, Ryder, this is kind of your fault. You set him doing this on his own, so there was one point of failure, and you put a new thing on his uniform that he's not used to, and when that snags on a lever that probably should have some kind of lock or some kind of mechanism to prevent this from happening, then that causes the whole truck to fall down the gorge and get destroyed or heavily damaged. So I blame Ryder a little bit more for this than anybody mentions, and certainly Ryder doesn't take any part of the blame himself. So yeah, the rest of the team and the dinos end up pulling out the Brachiosaur with, because it's portrayed with Rex showing up to save the day, even though he was there for the call. So I'm not really sure why he didn't come along from the beginning, but anyway, he shows up with the Triceratops to kind of provide the extra hauling power that they need to pull out the Brachiosaur, even though just Marshall's fire truck would have been enough, if not for that branch. Meanwhile, Humdinger and his crew have decided to try to mine some of the diamonds. Now, at first, they try using conventional equipment. They use pickaxe, they use a drill, they even end up using a giant vehicle drill, but the diamond is just too hard for any of that, which is why Alistair ends up having this line, when in doubt, blow it out? Is that what it is? Anyway, blow it up. For now, though, it's just Humdinger using the pickaxe and failing, and using the drill, still failing, and the Mahakala, who have their nests inside here, kind of laughing at them. So after that, we finally get the scene that was in the audition package that showed us so much so long ago. So 2.5 years, we saw this scene, and it made it almost intact into the movie. You know, some of the lines aren't there. He didn't say sucker. He says some slightly different. The wording has changed a little bit by the final draft, but this scene is in there. Marshall's face when he tries to fix a little bit of the truck and then it just falls down. He pulls the best disappointed face. I think it's hilarious. And it's really nice to have another scene between Marshall and Rex. Really, that's the core of the kind of emotional resonance of this movie. Yeah, there is a very key scene between Ryder and Marshall, but most of what I liked was between Rex and Marshall, and this is one of the big parts of it. So they discuss how Rex makes mistakes too. He just learns from them. Everything's a work in progress, and you just have to keep trying to improve, which, of course, Marshall doubts but seems to take to heart. It's a very nice kind of mentoring moment between two characters who are really new to each other but are forming a bond. It's very sweet. Humdinger then decides to use the dynamite. The Mahakala, like one Mahakala grabs its nest and runs away, and that kind of um, is symbolic of them all escaping, I guess, because obviously they're not going to show them dying in a blast. So because one ran away, we can assume they all did, and yeah, Humdinger gets excited about pressing the plunger to make the explosion happen. It's got a nice impact to it. It feels like a real explosion in the moment, and it sends ripples all through the air. Across the island, and the stampede starts. So the dinosaurs start to stampede. So between the final explosion that leads to the eruption, this explosion that leads to the stampede, and ramming the Brachiosaurus so that it falls in the gorge, Humdinger is literally responsible for every single bad thing that happens, other than the Spinosaurus chasing the pups. It's all Humdinger's fault. So yeah, they realize that a big stampede is coming, and it goes right past where the mobile HQ is. So yeah, again, these two have just had their little talk. So Marshall pulls Rex to safety out of the way of the stampede. Another sweet moment between those two, and then we hear that Lillian has been caught up in it. A Stegosaurus kind of flips her over its back, and she lands on a Parasaurolophus, so she needs to be saved. And the Paw Patrol deploy in this scene, and it really, I had objections to this scene, let's say. Everyone just drives off and leaves Marshall and Rex saying, we don't have a vehicle. Marshall and Rhubarb saying, we don't have a vehicle. What are we going to do? But they just leave. None of them even acknowledge him, especially Ryder. Ryder should be saying something, but, it builds tension, and then given it after a pause that makes it seem like they've been abandoned, Rocky drives up and it's like, hey, need a lift and need a ride, and they get on the back, as we've seen. But it doesn't feel nice. It feels callous. It feels like they really don't care about Marshall very much. And yeah, Chase in particular has maybe a little bit of an objectionable character in this movie. I'll discuss that more in a bit. But anyway, Rocky saves the day. It's a fake out moment. But even so, I'm very disappointed in everyone else who just ignored Marshall. But yeah, they go and join the stampede. Sky can't get the rescue line down to Lillian. There are too many dinos in the way for all the big vehicles, so Marshall rides Chocobo style on Rhubarb's back, as we've seen, gets the rescue line to Lillian, who's hanging on for dear life. He's like, oh, just hold on 5 more seconds, and then gets the jumps dramatically, gets the clip onto her belt, and she's lifted to safety. But Marshall decides he's going to jump from this Parasaurolophus's back onto Rhubarb, but jumps with terrible timing and jumps straight into a branch. So it's, whether it's clumsiness or not, you can say for yourself, but he jumps with very bad timing and smacks into a branch. That also sends Rhubarb tumbling, so Marshall's very scared about what's happening to Rhubarb, and then Marshall looks up and a Brachiosaurus is about to step on him, and it cuts to black. And then he wakes up with, like, an arm in a bandage, so you kind of wonder what was meant to happen there. How did he lose consciousness and have an arm injury from what looked like getting stepped on by a Brachiosaur? You just have to fill in the blanks yourself. I think we can safely headcanon that something could realistically happen, but yeah, it's a little bit extreme, maybe. So he wakes up in the hospital. He says, first thing he does is ask where Rhubarb is, which is nice, I think. He's mostly concerned for Rhubarb. Uh, Ryder says they're out looking for him, and Marshall has his crisis of confidence. He says you know, he's too clumsy. He messes up too much. He doesn't know why you would need a clumsy pup like him in the Paw Patrol. And Ryder says, no, don't think like that. Do you remember when I first met you? And it goes back into the flashback. Kind of a very, very familiar way of segueing into the flashback. I guess it's going to be Ryder doing it each time. Now, I've already talked about the flashback and how I find it disappointing. It is Baby Marshall. Most of you have been probably spoiled on this. If you're watching this video, hopefully spoilers don't matter to you that much, or it's much later and you've already seen it. I hope you didn't get spoiled and you enjoyed it for the first time in the theater, as I managed to. But yeah, he's a baby, or very young indeed, and he's taking part in these tryouts, and they're clearly fire pup tryouts because they involve hoses and hydrants, and he can't get up the wall, so basically he just tries all night until he finally does it. Kind of like Judy Hopps or many other characters who persevere in nighttime training sequences that include, he doesn't do anything clever like in Mulan. He just keeps doing it until he finally gets to the top, even though he's fallen down many times. It's very ordinary, I'd say. It is cute, but it didn't do anything for me. I expected something more emotionally resonant, something with some sense of loss. We don't know where he came from. We don't know what his background is. We just know he showed up to audition one day, basically. He came to the tryouts, and presumably Ryder rounded up all of the other pups who were trying out for the position and were like, nope, sorry, I'm giving it to the Dalmatian. Surprise, right? Fire pup a Dalmatian? Crazy. But yeah, the others presumably all cried into their pillows that night because Ryder just rejected them. We don't know. They don't care. They don't. The movie doesn't dwell on any such kind of details. Marshall gets the job, and Sky and Chase are there too, so we can presume we're going in order of, at least in the movie continuity, when the pups were adopted. So it made sense that the line Sky had at one point in movie 2 that got cut, where Ryder's like, I've already got as many pups as I can take care of. That got cut because, actually he only had Chase at the time. Anyway, their models have been aged up slightly. Sky basically looks the same as she does when she's in a baby, in her baby scenes in movie 2, but they've made Chase look slightly older, and he looks very awkward. He looks like he's going through a difficult, awkward growth spurt kind of phase. I don't think it looks very good, but I do like that they bothered to give them the younger models anyway. So the flashback ends, and Marshall is reassured that he never gives up, or he's the pup that never gives up. He can walk totally fine on his injured leg. It has no consequence whatsoever. He's just, he doesn't limp or anything. He can just, there's no apparent reason why it's even bandaged. Ryder says, luckily it's not broken, but I don't know why they ever suspected it was. And apparently it's not sprained either, even though, in cartoons a sprain is basically nothing. So it's much the same. So Marshall, after this, decides he's not going to give up. The other pups come back home and they say, we haven't found Rhubarb. There's no sign of him. We've done all we can, but it's dark now. We have to look in the morning. And yet again, one of the pups decides he's going to go off on his own after Ryder has kind of disappointed him. I guess in this way, it's actually kind of interesting and complicated, and it came across, I think, better in the Japanese dub. that this is almost like an undermining of the idea that you should never give up. You should always persevere. Because Marshall does decide he's going to never give up at night and never going to quit on finding rhubarb, even though it's the jungle and it's dark and he has basically no hope of finding him. So he suits up and goes out to look for rhubarb on his own, which is a terrible idea. So it's kind of interesting that immediately after being told in a celebratory way, you're the pup who never gives up, he does something that's never giving up, but in an ill-advised way, and ends up suffering for it. So there are some complications there that I'm not sure are fully kind of meant to be thought about and explored, but actually being the pup who never gives up maybe isn't such a good thing. Even as he's heading out the door, though, Rex sees him and discourages him, says, you shouldn't do this, but Marshall says he's not going to give up on rhubarb, and off he goes looking for him, and then he actually ends up getting caught in Harper's net, meant to catch dinosaurs, and Harper even thinks he is a funny-looking dinosaur, shows him to Humdinger, and Humdinger's like, that's not a dinosaur, that's one of the PAW Patrol, and he cannot remember what Marshall's name is, which I thought was fun. Yeah, he doesn't even name his kitties, so forgetting what Marshall's called, I thought, was kind of a good bit. And that's when Alistair calls down, hey, no, that's Marshall, he's my nephew's favorite. And Humdinger gets upset that there's, a positive reception to the PAW Patrol. So Marshall just gets kind of strung up nearby with Harper guarding him, and Humdinger and Alistair go on setting up a huge explosion to get all of the diamonds out. The previous explosion didn't dislodge any of the diamonds. They needed much more. Or did it dislodge maybe a little one? Anyway, they decide they need to blow up the whole thing to get more. And Marshall somehow knows this is going to destroy the island, he says. If you do that, you'll destroy the island. I don't really know how he knows that. And it doesn't actually do that. Rex shows up to save Marshall. It's another nice moment. He speaks to the Mahakala, not just going roar, 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 but actually making Mahakala noises. And although he could just be making baby noises, like we do to cats. It may not be much different from going pss, pss, because he gets out a pup treat and throws it at Harper, and the Mahakala mob her, and Rex can set free Marshall. But in something I quite like, they have no opportunity to stop Humdinger. He immediately sets off the explosion as Marshall gets free, so they go off to they go off to tell Ryder what happened. And the two of them running together, working together, very cute. This is definitely the Marshall and Rex together movie, which I'm here for. I enjoy it. That's you see it happens at night, and Humdinger sets off the explosion. They go running back together. A bit more light here. And by the time they get back, it's light again. The volcanic eruption happens. These pyroclastic rocks are flying everywhere. In the single night, Ryder has prepared a new mount for Timmy with this amazing robotic like crane thing, and given Rex a uniform. He doesn't change into it. He doesn't get a bath or anything. I thought he might get like fluffed up and cleaned, but no, he just appears suddenly in the next scene after this in his uniform, and Ryder's already fixed Marshall's truck as well. So it got totaled and then got fixed very, very quickly. And Ryder throws Marshall the ignition key, which I don't think that their little pup hands have used before, but they seem to have grippy paws and can just pick things up as of this movie. So I guess a key kind of makes sense in the movie continuity. Uh, but yeah, it's obviously visual shorthand, but thinking about that key makes me a little curious. Anyway, they spring into action. This is Rex being very impressed by this shot, so this shot goes straight into this shot of him being impressed and Ryder being proud of his work when he should really be springing into action, but you need a moment for that. They start to evacuate and head to the caverns to take cover, but Marshall has gone off to look for Rhubarb, who's still missing. They scoop up the Mahakala and basically make sure everyone's safe. I quite like that Sky's reason for landing in this cool transformation sequence is actually that she's getting ash in her engines. So this is her being grounded, basically. But it feels kind of realistic in a way. I think it's a good decision to get her on the ground and still taking part in rescues, but because she can't keep flying with so much ash in the air. She and Chase then get a rescue. Eugenia and Heidi are trying to get this one stubborn Mahakala down off a tree, and then there's a great shot where the whole side of the mountain just collapses and all the trees come down in this wonderful little simulation. It's visually a real treat when the whole mountainside just collapses. And what we thought might be like dirty water, a flood, this is a mudslide. So they get stuck on the top of the tree branch, and Chase and Sky are driving along on the side of the caverns, which have convenient but not too convenient roads for them to traverse, or flat spaces, I should say. They're not made as roads. So they have to run a line between the two vehicles for these two to hang on to, and then they keep going up and down on each side, and these two keep sliding back to the middle just as they're about to be safe. They slide back. It goes on just long enough to not outstay its welcome, and then they have a very dramatic moment where they finally they get like flung into the air before they get saved. And of course everything works out okay, but yeah, this moment is nice. On the other hand, I thought Heidi would be a very likable character, but really her only true character moment that's not just reacting to stuff around her is her kind of teasing Eugenia for being scared of dinosaurs. So Eugenia gets licked by that Stegosaurus at the start and is like, oh, they're terrifying. And Eugenia, in a way that doesn't sound like friendly banter, kind of goes, oh, great, I've got a partner who's a partner to study the dinosaurs who's scared of dinosaurs. And she sounds genuinely quite vicious about it. She sounds like a high school bully with a British accent rather than being friendly and likable. So otherwise she's just basically, there for exposition or calling for help, that kind of thing, being in peril and screaming. But so the one defining character moment Heidi gets, I think, makes her quite unlikable, and it's mostly delivery. I think she could sound like she's affectionately teasing her partner, but she sounds like she's genuinely being quite cruel to her. Anyway, they get to safety, and actually, yeah, on the subject, Chase is also maybe a little bit unpleasant in this movie. He has quite a few lines where he's like rolling his eyes when they realize the cat is still on the burning boat and, in danger of burning to death. He's like, oh, it's always cats causing problems. And yeah, he has a few lines like that where he's like, doesn't seem to be taking a serious situation seriously, and is mostly like rolling his eyes and being annoyed at it. And it happens here again. They're trying to climb to safety for their lives, and then they keep sliding back, and he's like, oh, again, come on. I don't remember the exact line, but He sounds like he's done with it, and it seems callous. Chase doesn't get a lot to do in this movie. Mostly this rescue is, basically all he does, and shoots some water at the boat alongside Rubble. So he's not really having much of a character, especially compared to the previous two movies. So the moments he does get when he comes across as kind of indifferent to people's danger or suffering, I think make him seem a bit unlikable. So I kind of hope that doesn't happen again. But yeah, I feel like it's not a great chase movie. Okay, everyone is kind of in action at this point. Even Zuma, he gets to drive a bit, I guess. He doesn't really do anything. There's also no moment where Rocky takes a huge Brachiosaurus on the back of this truck. That's just for the toys. He gathers dinosaurs and they go in the back, but the Brachiosauruses just have to run for themselves because no one can carry them. And there's that kind of funny moment where Ryder is crammed in with lots of dinosaurs. Meanwhile, Humdinger is trying to load all of the diamonds onto the back of a pickup truck, and he gets too greedy. He wants to pick up a huge one. The others is telling him, like, maybe you shouldn't be greedy. Maybe, we're already rich. Let's just take this. But Humdinger insists. And then the lava starts to flow, singes his butt. Very funny, of course. And he has to give up on the diamonds. The whole truck with the diamonds on the back gets melted by the lava, and they just have to escape. So he ends up basically causing this cataclysm and getting nothing out of it. Meanwhile, Marshall is looking for Rhubarb, and yeah, he just happens to come across him. Rhubarb just runs across the road in front of him at one point. Marshall stops the truck, gets out, and then out pops Humdinger, looking very violent. And he corners Marshall and says it's all his fault, and he's always standing in his way. And it's a very threatening moment. We don't really know what Humdinger was planning to do to Marshall, but he does seem like he's gonna be meting out some actual violence on the poor pup. So Humdinger in the movies does tend to be a lot more threatening. Giant Humdinger, of course, tried to crush Marshall to death in his hand. And it does look again like Humdinger is murderous in movie 3. So he has Marshall on his back. Marshall's not fighting back or anything, and then Rhubarb jumps out and roars properly at Humdinger. So he finds his roar in order to save his friend. Classic moment. It's not kind of made too much of, so the cheesiness of it is fine. It goes by fast, and they don't kind of try to over-egg the pudding. And Humdinger just runs away. And Rhubarb and Marshall have a nice reunion. They get into the truck. For some reason, there's a mechanism that lifts Rhubarb up into the higher water cannon crane platform thing, so he can shoot water out, putting out fires. And I don't really know why it was built, or if it was built specifically for him, but it's a kind of cute video gamey moment. And there's not a lot of footage for the rest of the climactic action sequence. So they come across the rest of the team, who have indeed been caught in the cavern they decided to shelter in, with the lava encroaching on them, getting closer and closer. Marshall tries to kind of solidify the lava with his water cannons, but of course that just means the rock melts again. So he crosses the lava river by shooting the fire down below the tires and going across quickly. But they get stuck, and they narrowly escape as it kind of tips up. They climb on it. Marshall gets on Rhubarb, and Rhubarb does his Yoshi jumps until they get to the other side. In fact, you may have heard his roar attempts, but there are quite a lot of very Yoshi-like noises that Rhubarb makes throughout throughout the whole movie. So he's more Yoshi than Chocobo overall. But yeah, the entire fire truck gets swallowed by the lava, so the the truck gets destroyed twice over, basically. No destruction of Sky's vehicle this time, but Marshall catches up by having his truck destroyed twice, once mostly and then once completely, utterly melted by lava. So yeah, Rubble has a little zinger about it and says, this is a tough week to be Marshall's fire truck or something like that. Yeah, the reason Marshall has crossed to the other side is he's going to climb up the mountain, and yeah, as I've pointed out multiple times, there's a lake up there. He can save the day by making that making all that water come crashing down, cooling the lava, and saving all of his friends. So he starts to climb. Some of the pyroclastic rocks kind of dislodge rocks that fall near him, nearly hit Rhubarb, and then they hit where his grappling hook is, and he falls. And I think they went too far. I actually think Marshall definitely would have died. He falls a long way, bounces a lot of times. It's really very violent and kind of surprising. And yeah, he lands. That when we see he's all scuffed up, it's because he's fallen while trying to climb, and I think they should have toned it down a little bit, because he would not have survived that fall. Nobody would. But yeah, he's unconscious for a little bit. They all call up to him, Marshall, and they yeah, somehow reach his unconscious state. He remembers how he fell so many times climbing that wall in his tryouts, and that gives him the determination to get up and say he can do it, which is what is happening here. So he climbs the rest of the way. He knocks down a rock somehow. Luckily, that knocks down, that like impacts in just the right way that the kind of other rocks crack under the pressure of the water, and then it all falls down. Luckily, his plan worked out, and yeah, that particular piece of lava gets cooled, and everyone's safe. The rest of the catastrophic volcanic eruption, we kind of guess, just kind of takes care of itself. The implication doesn't seem to be that this lake's worth of water cools the volcano, because obviously it can't get to where the erupting volcano is. But yeah, the next time we see things, everything's cooled down. So I guess once this particular patch of lava got cooled, the volcano was just like, you know what, fair enough, I'll stop now. And yeah, there is no more eruption to worry about. Everything is cooled down, looking like a wasteland. Marshall looks around. He doesn't know the others are safe. They might have died in the lava for all he knows, but there they are. They run together, have a tearful reunion, very cute. And then Rhubarb comes out as well, and he's like, yay, Rhubarb, and there's a celebratory mood. Then it goes straight to kind of congratulating the, well, receiving congratulations for all of the good things they've done. First of all, Rex gets honored by Marshall. This is Rex looking at Marshall, thanking him. Very, very cute moment. Very sweet little shots of them making eye contact. Very adorable. And yeah, Marshall makes him a full member of the Paw Patrol and guardian of the island, giving him his pup tag. Um, he's been allowed to do this by Ryder. We kind of infer. Ryder says to him, Marshall, if you please, or something like that. Uh, so we know they've discussed it ahead of time, and they've decided Marshall will be the one to do it. And then, yeah, Marshall gives him a little speech thanking him for everything he's done, and they kind of get together and they both howl and roar, which I was happy to see. I didn't know if it was going to be a howl or a roar for the triumphal moment. It's both, and that's very sweet to see. So, yeah, that's the end of the movie. Is there anything I didn't mention? When the scientists arrive on the island, Ryder gives them a little speech, which I felt maybe seemed a bit presumptuous for him to get up and be like, we've got 65 million years of science to catch up on, or something, and I cringed a little bit at that, but, that's kind of Ryder's character. He's meant to be a little bit cringe, and that's part of what gives him his charm. And, oh yeah, Humdinger and crew get their comeuppance by having to clean up the dino droppings, let's say. The huge amount of dino poop, such as you might have seen in Jurassic Park. Oh yeah, and at the end they're kind of, I wouldn't say reconstructing, they're replanting the forests after this disaster. So we saw a kind of Triceratops being used as a beast of burden at one point. That's just at the very end. And Zuma and Rocky, we see walking along, and they've got kind of seed dispensers, like sprinklers, in for their backpacks, and they're kind of getting the plants to regrow after, volcanic pyroclastic flow has just destroyed everything. So that was quite a cute little moment as well. So overall, it's a great movie for Marshall and Rex. They both have lots of very nice moments, lots of great interactions. If you're hoping for anything of substance really for the other pups, if that's your whole kind of basis for whether it's enjoyable or not, you may be a little disappointed by how little everybody else does. Even Skye getting McKenna Grace as the voice actor, she really does very little. She has a few moments of interaction with the scientists and the dinos, and she says things are cute. She's the first one to glide after Rex, and she and Chase do that Eugenia and Heidi rescue together on opposite sides of the gorge. But not a lot else. She searches for rhubarb, I guess. Yeah, Rocky at least has one nice moment with Marshall. He picks him up when everyone else seems to be abandoning him. Of course, Rubble has his bit where the Mahakala keep stealing his pup treats. And by the way, they never say Mahakala once in the movie, which is a bit disappointing because everyone's going to assume they're Compsognathus. They do say Mahakala in the Japanese dub, but not in the English version, which I find slightly annoying because now nobody's going to know those are meant to be Mahakala unless they consume secondary media. Although maybe they thought it was a way of avoiding the criticism of people going, where are their feathers then? Zuma really gets, I think, the least to do. He, provides the rescue boat that they sit in while Marshall does the real work in the initial rescue. And then he did make me laugh. I think the only time I laughed out loud was when Rubble does his line about that rumble was my stomach. And then Zuma gives him a great look and goes, someone get this pup a snack. And just the delivery of the line made me chuckle. And then, Chase, I feel, actually comes out looking pretty bad from this movie. He kind of seemed like an unpleasant person because of the way he kept, the way so many of his few lines were him rolling his eyes and making a snarky comment. I don't think of Chase as a snarky guy, so I wasn't super happy with his representation here. However, my favorite character is Marshall. Rocky comes next, and he acquitted himself relatively well of the 5 other main pups. And Rex got to be great in this. Super cute, super interesting as a character, very likable, and not just a flat goody-goody character, but with a little bit of a kind of cheeky edge to him and a bit of vulnerability as well. So, yeah, I would basically like the Rex and Marshall show to go on forever. Give them a spin-off, just the 2 of them, and I'll be totally happy with that. But of course, yeah, I'm hoping in future movies that there'll be a bit more of a balanced ensemble and everyone gets a bit more to do. Okay, I'm sure this is a long video now. I'll leave it there. Let me know what you think. Click here to see my vlog about going to see the movies, or click here to see my spoiler-free impressions where you may glean a little bit of extra info. And that's all for today though, and see you guys again next time.